Andor is stunningly beautiful. But why? Why does Andor look so much better than every other Star Wars show? It's not as simple as just saying, oh, it had a larger budget, or they used practical effects, or they didn't use the volume at all. It's actually much more than that. It's a philosophy of visual effects. And recently, the Corridor crew sat down and reacted to the VFX on Andor seasons 1 and 2, and they hit the nail right on the head.
Andor, out of all of the Star Wars properties, is easily the coolest.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Like, I love that one, you know? This is Coruscant.
Dude, that's so sick.
And he's right. It is. These shots interspersed in between everything make the show just so visually appealing. But listen what he says.
I love this like center framed kind of cinematography style. I'm such a sucker for that.
Me too.
It's really compelling, it's really fun, and I really like their philosophy behind doing their visual effects.
Listen to this.
They really wanted to ground their effects in reality, and to do that, they basically shot on location for a lot of their sequences, and they would end up replacing a lot of the stuff in the shot. Those shots still contributed to the final look.
Like, look at that. This philosophy of doing it this way is partly the reason the budget is so high, but also why things look so good. But that's not all, though. You need to see some more of these comparisons, especially when they get to Mon Mothma's car. Listen.
Look, you know, it's what I keep calling informed intent. It's like everyone's on the same page about the composition of the shot, the way the shot should feel. Even if it's all getting replaced, it's still contributing to what they're trying to do. So basically, these are just some befores and afters.
Oh, wow.
So I think this is like
It's a real place.
Convention center?
I think it's a convention center in Vancouver somewhere.
Yeah, okay.
And it's like they're shooting the people, but then everything outside the window is replaced.
And it's like matte paintings. This is exactly what original Star Wars was doing, where they had some things that were practical, but then they would block out the scene and the shot to have matte paintings. They're just doing digital matte paintings. And so when people say that Andor isn't Star Wars, I'm like, they're even having the same philosophy of how they're putting together these shots, and they're planning it out ahead of time so that they have people in the frame over here and leaving the other side so that they can fill it in like at the convention center. This is the most Star Wars philosophy of visual effects as anything has been since, honestly, the original trilogy.
Wow.
The next one is also a great example here. This is in Coruscant. She's got this very fancy flying car. She gets in.
Look at this.
But the car is reflecting green screen.
Yeah.
It's reflecting all of this.
So you can, when you have a green screen, which I don't have behind me right now because I didn't want to have green on my shirt, because part of the problem when you have a green screen is it reflects and you can see all of the green here. You can see all of it kind of shining on the car, so that if you were to then remove all of this, you're going to have splotchy removals and you're going to have to just touch it up. So look what they did.
This other stuff. So the whole front of the car, fully replaced. It's almost spot on.
Yeah.
It looks almost identical to the point I was like, oh yeah, no, they definitely just kept it. But if you actually look at
So they already had the model in mind, the blocking, it helps with the acting, it helps with everything, but it also helps with the lighting. And when you have these visual FX artists going in to replace things, they already have the perfect idea for the way the lighting worked in the entire scene. It's so
individual
good.
details, they do change.
Whoa, they replaced the door too.
They did, yeah.
But it just makes so much sense because, like, yeah, you get all the bounce light, all the reflections and stuff. Like, comping a real thing into like a full 3D shot is like one of the hardest things, and that's why there's like so many janky shots like in Marvel where you can just tell like, oh, this is the green screen the movie essentially. But replacing it all, that's why it's just easier to replace everything in CG.
And that has been the challenge and the frustration of what we've seen in Star Wars. And kind of the thought was, well, then the volume fixes all of that. You don't have to comp, you can have the interactive background moving with you, but it just also feels small at times and it doesn't work perfectly. It works when you mix it in. I think Mandalorian did it a lot better than we saw in Obi-Wan Kenobi or Boba Fett. But even there's moments in Mandalorian where you start to feel, this feels cramped. It doesn't feel exactly right. It still feels a little off, even though they've planned it out perfectly and the background's able to move. Like, it's absolutely amazing what you can do, but over-reliance on that thing, our eyes, our brains can almost pick up on that stuff. Even though it can look stunning, there's still something just off about it. And then we jump to the junkyard. Look what they did here. Really, really cool.
So this is a really interesting one because it's like they shot on some sort of like
Holy crap.
industrial yard here, and they added a bunch of real practical machines, but then they added a bunch of digital machines matching the sort of aesthetic and lighting of the real ones there.
That's
I
insane.
love the use of reference. And they're keeping the front of that ship, the practical one, they're keeping large elements of that, it looks like.
What I found interesting about this, so they actually did a lot of shooting on all these really cool locations, and they just embraced the sort of weather that they had. So if you look at the sky, typically when you shoot stuff on location like this, the skies always get replaced.
So it's just basically color graded, but the sky remains the same. And you could see, like, if this were original trilogy Star Wars, you could see how all this would maybe be real. And then they would use a matte painting for the building and the architecture and everything else in the background. But instead, all they're doing is this is all practical. He's walking by it, the same shadows, the people. You see the aliens here on the beach. All of this is practical. And then you just have a color grading and a CGI building kind of put here in the middle. This is the philosophy behind what it was to do Andor. And even Tony Gilroy has said part of the reason they did it this way is this is how their brains have learned and understood how to compose a shot, how to do all of that. And when you switch everything to digital, it is so much harder to compose a camera angle and a shot and get all of that when you've really trained and learned, and cameramen and women and directors and everyone has learned to do it like this. We're still just not there with those other things to get the same level of cinematography as we see in a show like Andor.
Look at the sky.
Yeah. Same sky.
And here I thought it was interesting because the double in the mocap suit is in full shade. But for the render, they're like, oh, it looks a little bit better if you get a bit of a sun swing in there.
Dude, that robot looks so good.
I know. It's those like subtle surface imperfections on it, you know?
Nice. Most of that is just original plate. That's awesome.
Oh, this is so much fun.
This comes back to the philosophy of trying to ground everything. It doesn't necessarily mean doing everything practically. That's a misunderstanding.
Trying to ground everything, doing everything practically is a misunderstanding. I think that is exactly it. And it helps me, give me language, because when people have asked me, why do I like Andor? Oh, I just say practical sets, right? No, but it's this philosophy of grounding everything, not just doing it all practically.
So the little robot guy was practical in 95% of the shots of the whole thing. But again, it's not necessarily because they're doing it practically makes it better. They can fully replicate this in CG. There's the whole meteor sequence. I think it's called the Eye.
So I just want to point this out. They're not Andor fans. They're not Star Wars fans. They haven't even really watched the show. They haven't. They even admitted that earlier. But for them to be able to look at this from a visual standpoint and break down what is making it so good is what is needed. They're unbiased. Their opinions are not based in the Star Wars universe. They don't care if this is quote unquote Star Wars or not Star Wars. That means nothing to them. And so their opinions of just the cinematography of this is so helpful, the VFX and everything behind, because they have an expertise that I don't have. Listen to how it closes out, though, as they look at the eye, because I think they make a connection here to the way that the eye and the camera and the CG was all done back to the original trilogy. And I think it's really cool.
Yeah,
and it's one of the most gorgeous sequences in Star Wars.
It is.
Ships are trying to like dodge actual pieces of burning debris falling out of the sky. We have scanline VFX, we have ILM doing all this stuff.
Like, look at all the different layers of how they're doing it. So cool.
It's fully CG, but they're trying to mimic the sort of miniature photography of the original films.
This looks like the perfect blend of practical and VFX. And it's just expertly composited together. There's something to your...
And you might have missed it. He said it, what? They're trying to mimic the model-esque shooting that we got from the original trilogy. So that camera kind of moving back and forth, the way that the ship is moving, it's trying to make it feel like it fits in Star Wars. And this is what so many of us have been trying to say for a long time about Andor, but I just haven't had the words to describe it. And I thank the Corridor crew for saying it.
Movie, like, actually having happened. You filmed it. It existed in a certain moment in time.
Watching a video of someone playing an amazing piano solo versus watching a CG piano solo, it doesn't hit the same because it doesn't feel as tactile. So knowing that these things exist in the real world is it's just kind of cool.
It's exciting.
And it is cool too, because like you say, it's like having everyone on the same page during production itself helps the cohesiveness of the entire product on the back end too.
Totally.
So it all comes down to the philosophy of grounding everything. And you even heard it there at the end that when you do it this way, it makes everything else on the back end that much easier. It isn't just about fixing it in post. It's not just about, hey, we'll do everything we need to, but the eye and the desire and the thought of the writers and the directors and the producers is done beforehand as they lean into it, so that when you're on set, this is what can happen when now you have different directors for different episodes, but you have a cohesive vision. So you can get multiple shots of scenes and different takes of scenes, all using the practical effects because it's all grounded. It feels that way. And so when people are interacting with everything around in the junkyard or in the square at Palmo during the Gorman Massacre, all these types of things, it just works so well. And it just adds to the already great story that we see in Andor. And one of the things that I've appreciated most, and I really hope it's this type of philosophy that gets taken into other projects. I wish Ahsoka Season 2 would do more things like this. I hope that the movie Grogu Mando did more things like this. When we say we love Andor and we wish more things were like it, we're not saying that every story needs to be like this necessarily. It doesn't have to be different from the Jedi and the Force and all of those things. No, but it's just the philosophy and approach to even putting this up onto the screen that is just so refreshing in a world of just get everything out quick, get everything done, fix it in post and move on. The slow, methodical planning of building and putting things together, I'm afraid we're not going to see anything like it again unless this focus from Disney and Star Wars to films instead of TV shows will actually bring about that desired result. I really hope so. Let me know what you think down below. What do you think about this philosophy? Were you able to point these things out and see this type of stuff impacting the story? I know I did. Thanks for being here, guys. As always, my name is Jeremy. This is The Force Fandom. Thank you for making it all the way through this video. If you found I deserved a like, please hit a like on the video. And if you enjoy this type of Star Wars content, make sure you subscribe for more things just like this. If you want to check some of my breakdowns out, you can check out one of my deep dives on Andor Season 2 right here. I'll catch you on the next one. Remember, the Force will be with you always.